For decades, the public and medical communities conflated circadian misalignment with simple sleep deprivation. True circadian rhythms are 24-hour physiological patterns that persist regardless of external cues, sleep pressure, or exhaustion. This rhythm originates in the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN, which are present in every cell of the human body. These genes form an autoregulatory transcriptional-translational feedback loop, creating a genetic cycle that repeats every 24 hours. This localized genetic mechanism powers peripheral clocks, autonomous circadian rhythms generated within the heart, liver, stomach, and pancreas. Circadian misalignment occurs when this biological architecture fails, causing the master SCN pacemaker, the peripheral organs, and the external environment to fall out of sync. Modern industrial society forces this uncoupling on a massive scale. Shift work creates an environment where the internal clock and external world are chronically fractured. This environmental stressor leads to significant spikes in cardiovascular disease, diabetes, obesity, and cancer. Circadian misalignment represents a systemic failure that drives metabolic and psychiatric collapse independently of sleep duration. Rigorous study of this pathology requires researchers to track objective biological circadian markers rather than self-reported sleep times. The first critical marker is dim light melatonin onset, or DLMO, the specific moment the pineal gland begins secreting melatonin under low light conditions. The second marker is the core body temperature minimum, representing the deepest physiological trough of the biological night. We map these points on a 24-hour timeline to calculate the phase angle. The phase angle is the duration between these biological markers and the actual behavioral act of falling asleep. This metric is particularly distorted in the evening chronotype, individuals who naturally prefer extreme late-night activity. Evening types often exhibit a compressed phase angle, sleeping much earlier in their internal biological phase to conform to societal demands. This results in social jet lag, the chronic whiplash between natural free day sleep and forced workday alarms. This specific combination of social jet lag and compressed phase angles correlates with increased risks of type 2 diabetes, hypertension, and obesity. Calculating the phase angle provides a quantifiable mathematical metric for predicting these pathologies. Separating the biological damage caused by mistimed sleep from the damage of sleep loss itself requires a specific laboratory protocol. To find the answer, chronobiologists had to remove humans from all external cues, including natural light cycles. This is achieved through a forced desynchrony protocol, where subjects live in an environment without clocks or windows. Researchers artificially place subjects on a 28-hour forced schedule, a cycle the human brain cannot accommodate. Because the SCN cannot adjust to this timeframe, the internal biology begins to free run, drifting entirely out of phase with the subject's sleep-wake cycle. Despite getting 8 hours of sleep, misaligned subjects experience a severe drop in leptin, the satiety hormone. Data shows that during these phases, subjects exhibit heightened glucose responses to meals and sharp increases in insulin resistance. Forced dysynchrony proves that misalignment is an independent metabolic pathogen, untethered from sleep deprivation. A deeper form of internal uncoupling occurs when the master pacemaker in the brain loses its connection to the peripheral organs. The circadian network uses specific zeitgebers, or time givers, to stay synchronized, but different clocks respond to different signals. Light is the primary zeitgeber for the SCN in the brain. While the brain's clock locks to light, peripheral clocks, particularly the liver, respond to food. When consumed during the biological dark phase, the liver clock shifts its phase to align with the meal, while the SCN remains anchored to the light cycle. Animal data confirms the impact of this split. Mice fed during their biological night gained twice as much weight as those fed during the day, despite consuming identical calories. The Yakubowitz PCOS study demonstrated similar findings in humans. Identical 1,400 kilocalorie diets resulted in drastically different insulin sensitivity based solely on meal timing. Eating at night forces peripheral organs to process energy while the central brain is signaling a systemic fast, creating a state of physiological conflict. These laboratory mechanisms manifest directly in clinical populations. Intrinsic circadian rhythm sleep disorders, like delayed sleep phase disorder and non-24, involve a chronic alteration of the internal clock itself. These contrast with extrinsic triggers, like jet lag, where the environment changes faster than the body can adjust. Abnormal phase angles are heavily linked to major depressive disorder and seasonal affective disorder. Bipolar disorder presents an especially destructive circadian signature. Even during stable periods, patients with bipolar disorder exhibit fragmented activity rhythms and uniquely low amplitudes. These patients often exhibit abnormally long phase angles, where melatonin onset is dangerously out of sync with habitual sleep. Researchers are tracing these vulnerabilities to polymorphisms in core clock genes like PER3 and clock, linking extreme chronotypes to psychiatric illness. Addressing these diseases through the lens of circadian timing creates new therapeutic possibilities. Targeted morning light and evening melatonin can act as levers to physically shift the phase angle back into alignment. Strict meal timing is also being utilized as a non-pharmacological tool to resynchronize the metabolic clocks of the peripheral organs. Correcting the circadian phase provides the foundational stability necessary for metabolic survival and psychiatric health.